Welcome back, everyone. We had a bit of a delay thanks to a technical glitch, but it's all solved. So we're back on it again. So we're under communications, treasurer's communications of interest to the council regarding the 2025 draft budget. Sure.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information Section A items of the Treasurer's Administrative Report entitled Communications of Interest.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Okay, so these next series have two motions in each one. So we're going to do the first one in each one, which is just introduce the resolution, and then we'll go back through and we'll discuss them. So 7A, Community Development, Claremelle Community Hall, proposed engineering for washrooms.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's Administrative Report entitled Claremelle Community Hall Engineering for Washrooms Proposal.
Any high-level comments? In favor? Carried. 7B, Asbestos Management Program in buildings.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's Administrative Report entitled Asbestos Management Programs in Buildings for information purposes.
In favor? Carried. Manager Community Development, Community Improvement Plan, 2024 Annual Report.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's Administrative Report entitled Community Improvement Plan 2024 Annual Budget.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. 7D, increase of 2 hours per week for recreation maintenance assistant.
Moved by Councillor Regent, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's Administrative Report entitled Increase of 2 hours per week for recreational maintenance assistant.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item E, EDTF proposal, summer student for economic and community development.
Moved by Councillor Regent, seconded by Councillor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager Community Development's Administrative Report entitled EDTF Proposals Summer Student for Economic and Community Development for information purposes.
Comments? Councillor Good.
So what is this student going to be doing actually that hasn't already, we've never had one before. So like, what's the purpose of it?
Sorry about that. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the proposal from the Economic Development Task Force is that this position would be provided administrative assistance to myself in the task force. So there's some outlined potential of what this position would be doing. So it's in regards to economic and community development assistance throughout the summer months in a high level. There's several bullet points in the admin report that goes into detail, kind of what some of the job duties would be.
We've never had this before. So why is it coming forward now? Like it's not been required.
Deputy Mayor.
Actually, we have had this before. We had an economic development officer under contract and we lost him. And we are finding that certain projects that were underway had to be halted. There are points outlined in the admin report.
Good.
From what I hear, we're hiring another economic development officer in the county. Why not use that position there instead of spending township taxpayers' money?
Well, the mayor can confirm when that starts, but I don't believe it's till 2026.
2026, and it's considered to be only a 3-year contract,
Right,
which North Frontenac and Central Frontenac pushed to make it 3.
right. And we do have a little bit of assistance from Richard Allen, but Brooke could explain how that relationship works perhaps. Because I don't want to suggest that he's at our beck and call because he clearly is not. So can you maybe explain how that works with Richard?
Yeah, so currently we have access to county economic development staff. Richard, the manager of economic development, has been coming back once a month to attend our EDTF meetings. Their priorities are not always aligned with the township and what their work plan looks like and what our work plan looks like. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, the day-to-day activities is not something that the county's part of. They're part of larger county-wide initiatives.
Okay, so all of you, all the council, this is supposed to be just an introduction of the resolution. We're going to discuss it in detail and after we get through these. Okay? So save your thoughts. You're going to have lots of time to voice them in about an hour. Okay? Okay, so volunteer firefighter increase in training hours. Oh, sorry, we have to vote on that. Are you read the resolution again, please?
Moved by Counselor Regent, second by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled EDTF Proposal Summer Student for Economic and Community Development for information purposes.
In favor? Carried. Okay, item F, volunteer firefighter in-house training wages.
Moved by Counselor Regent, second by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Director of Emergency Services Fire Chief's administrative report entitled Volunteer Firefighter In-House Training Wages.
In favor? In favor means we're just putting it on the agenda for later. So I'm looking for anything. Okay, all right. Limited reopening of the RDOC waste site.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Limited Reopening of the RDOC Waste Site.
In favor? Carried. Item H, summary of the 10-year capital plan, tangible capital asset replacement schedules as amended.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives the treasurer's administrative report entitled 2025 Summary of the 10-Year Capital Plan, TCA Replacement Schedules, Plan Spending as amended for information purposes.
In favor? Carried. And then item I, consideration of the 2025 draft budget.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information from the treasurer regarding the 2025 draft budget.
Consideration of the 2025 budget. 10A.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Clare Mill Community Hall Engineering for Washrooms, and that council approves including $4,000 in the 2025 budget to have engineering work completed for the Clare Mill Community Hall washrooms.
Okay, so this section is the discussion piece. So, okay, any comments on this item? Counselor Good?
I'm engineering, what's What are we looking at getting done?
Brooke?
You through you, Mr. Mayor. So the proposal here is to have some engineering to update the bathrooms, make them accessible. So the proposal in this report is to pre-approve the engineering and then in hopes to find a grant that would meet the requirements of what we're looking for. So a lot of times grants require engineering ahead of time. So it's part of being grant ready, being shovel ready. So if a grant comes up, we can hopefully get some funding to redo the bathrooms there to make them compliant with accessibility standards and to update the overall bathrooms.
Just as a comment, the Clare Mill Hall is the new volunteer group and its use is it's significantly high use. Counselor Fowler.
It's just a question, would this be like what they did at Snow Road with their washrooms being upgraded?
Yes, it would be a very similar project where we hopefully get some grant money to complete this.
Counselor Hoodle.
Well, I think this is important because we got a grant to do accessible doors. And if we have accessible doors, we don't have accessible washrooms, it doesn't make sense to me, so. And this, you had mentioned it, the shovel ready aspect of it, and we agreed that we're gonna have to spend some money to get shovel ready projects. So when grants are available, a lot of those grants need to be shovel ready, and this would be one of them.
Any other comments? So if we, in favor of the motion, if you vote in favor, it goes into the final budget. In favor. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Asbestos management program in buildings.
Moved by Counselor Hurmer, second by Counselor Udall. Be it resolved that council approves completing designated substance reviews in 2025 at an approximated cost of $30,000.
Comments?
Counselor Fowler.
Does anybody know how many buildings we have that have asbestos in it? That need to be removed?
Brooke.
So we're not aware of any buildings that have it in it. This is the part of the testing is to see if any of them do have it in it. So this is what this testing would find out for us. And per legislation, it is required before we do any work on a municipal facility, we have to know if there's asbestos in it. So this testing is going to upfront do all our buildings that are required and see if there's any mitigation efforts required.
Counselor Hurmer.
I was just gonna make that statement, as long as asbestos isn't disturbed, it's no health hazard.
Until you hire a contractor, the contractor goes in and hits asbestos. And then you have to deal with it. You have a potential lawsuit. And meanwhile, the contractor's sitting there on standby. It's this whole thing started 20 years ago. It's a bit of a red herring. They wanted it down to 2%, then they wanted it down to 1% after we did all the mitigation work. Where I work, we spent millions doing this. And there's more asbestos in the air than in the building, but anything built before 76 definitely has asbestos in it. Could be in their drywall compound. But this one says 90. So, it's something we have to do. So any final comments? In favor? Okay, it's part of the budget. Item C, Community Improvement Plan.
Be it resolved that council approves including $30,000 CIP funding in the 2025 budget.
Comments? Counselor Hurmer.
Well, is it necessary that taxpayers should be obligated now for improvements on businesses? I mean, they're already being taxed to hell right now.
Counselor Hoodle.
So this was $15,000 last year, am I correct? And how much of that $15,000 was used?
So all of the $15,000 was used and we did have to turn away businesses.
Can you tell me what that was used for?
So in 2024, we had 3 projects approved. So it was for cottage windows at a campground, for building siding at a campground, and for construction of a boat storage facility.
This is the one that originally originated with county money. And then last year we had a major discussion over it because the county money ran out. We only had a small amount left. And we elected to bring it down to 15,000 and just fund the extra 13,000 to make it 15. Now we're looking at putting that 13 back or 15 back in because the county money is no longer there, plus 15,000 more. So that's the basis for this. Counselor Good.
I just can't see taking taxpayers' money to do this. I'm not for it.
Counselor Regent.
Brooke, if you could maybe just clarify something, this is not something that we just do here in this township. This is quite common among small townships. I mean, I do realize we have a competing township that does not do something like this. I'm not referring to them, but we can't possibly be the only township that offers this program. And the second part to my question is, how many people did we say no to who might benefit from this year?
So in regards to CIP in different communities, you definitely see CIP programs in other communities. I can't speak to how many. I don't have that information. As far as, so this year during our application process, we did turn away one business and then we didn't promote the program anymore after that as there was no funding.
Could I get just a follow-up question?
Yes, you can.
Would it make sense that if we were to even offer this program at all, like clearly we would be looking at the applications, we're looking at what makes the most sense. We're not just approving. I mean, these would be things that would make sense. These are visual improvements from the street of a small business, perhaps that might actually generate some future business for them.
Yes, that's correct. So there is a CIP program, so which outlines what is eligible. So we make sure that the applications meet the program, make sure that they're eligible, and it is funded on a first come, first served basis.
Deputy Mayor.
I think this is a perfect example of the question we have to consider at council here is what should we be doing with the public's money? And there is a view that the public should not be supporting private business. On the other hand, for years, I've been hearing that we need an active and healthy small business community to make this a whole community that can employ local people. And that's exactly what this program does. There are very strict rules about which businesses can get this CIP money. There's no other vehicle with which we could support small business. Ours is unique in that it focuses township-wide on the business community only. And it has been successful and much larger in the past. So the question for us to consider is this something we do or not?
Counselor Fowler.
You know, one of my concerns about it, I think it's a good thing that we can do that for businesses, but then again, when we come up with an emergency situation like this culvert we were discussing earlier, you got to draw the line, what's more important. So that's my position.
Well, there could be an alternative. We had this discussion to much greater detail last year and we agreed on 15,000. And it wasn't a runaway vote. It wasn't unanimous. We could go back to $15,000 to keep the program in place and provide some help. Counselor Hoodle.
So I understand all points of views. Counselor Good makes absolute sense. But at the same time, I would agree to keeping at 15,000 and not increasing it to 30.
Counselor Hermer.
My question is, what do the people that supply this money benefit from?
Anyone care to answer this?
Sorry, I misunderstood. I think I misunderstood the question. Are you talking about what the businesses get out of it? Well, maybe as a small business owner myself, I would say that consider if the township decided to hand me, how much is the grant usually worth? About $1,500. I could do wonders to the outside of my business, which would probably make people in Coin pretty happy. So it would probably generate new customers and more revenue. So then some of these struggling businesses would actually survive.
Counselor Good.
I can see what it would do for the businesses, but before I would actually be thinking about giving to the business, I'd be looking at what their gross was for the year. And see the, well, then it is our business, we're giving them money. So it's, cause I know of other businesses, I'm not gonna say the names, but they've been redoing their cottages and they try to do one every year out of their own money. So I don't think I'm gonna vote for it.
Counselor Regent.
I think that there are enough people on our EDTF task force that we would make some smart decisions around who actually is going to use this money appropriately. We're not going to hand $5,000 over to somebody for no reason. So perhaps we could give a little bit of credit to the people making these decisions because we're not just going to pick names out of a hat.
Sorry, who makes the decision where the money goes?
So-
Is it you or is it the EDTF?
So it is done through myself and based on the programs set by council.
Sorry.
So just to add to that and to maybe help address Councillor Good's concerns is just, you're limited to the application, the number of applications that you can submit. So if it is a business with high gross, they can put their but when those 2 applications are done, then they're done. They can't do another one in 5 years or in 3 unless the program changes and that's changed. So oftentimes it is those businesses that have some money because it's often a 50-50 cost sharing, is it not? Or is that still the case? It used to be anyway. So again, it's
Yeah, it's 2/3.
or
It's
2/3. Yes. So they have to have some money to be able to invest as well.
Hermer.
People seem to be very concerned about business appearances and they want assistance for that. What about people's housing that can't afford to improve their houses?
I think personally, you need to step back on that one because a business has to attract the public. Almost every business has public coming in. And if the place looks like it's going to fall down and you could spend a small amount of dollars to improve it, you might attract more customers. Therefore, the business gets strengthened. And whether we like it or not, the North Frontenac is built on tourism, which is built on small businesses. So I'm not in favor of the 30, but I am in favor of a $15,000 allocation. I don't want to see this program go. I think we need to be able to say we're doing something. Brooke, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to clarify that the program's not just about facade, it's also about accessibility for businesses, so accessible access. It's also about new commercial builds. One of the projects we funded almost $300,000 project, of which we gave $5,000 for. So it is more than just facade. Yes, that is part of it, but there's a lot more to the program than just facade. And some of the identified municipal goals that were listed in my report and kind of why this funding is important is to enhance the appearance of the community and promote the awareness of businesses, to promote commercial vitality, to support and sustain the local economy, and to increase the level of social equity and public communication. So those are some of the municipal priorities of what the CIP does.
Thank you. Councilor Hermer.
Well, you said new business startups. Isn't that quite similar then to bonusing?
Right.
And that's why part of the reason this program came into case, because it is a vehicle where council is permitted to actually financially help a business. Otherwise, if we didn't have this program in place, you can't financially help a business. So that was part of the intention of this program, was just for that reason right there.
Pardon me? Councilor Hoodle?
I mean, we could argue back and forth here all day. Can we amend it to 15,000?
So we did this last meeting. Here we go again. Kara?
Or a council member who would support that amendment.
Need a seconder?
That's our second.
Okay.
The amended motion reads, be it resolved that council approves including $15,000 CIP funding in the 2025 budget.
All in favor? Jeez. Opposed? I'm going to ask if you're part of the. Okay. Okay, $15,000 it is. Okay, item D, increase in 2 hours per week for recreational maintenance assistant.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council approves increasing the recreation maintenance assistant position to 32 hours per week.
Discussion. In favor?
Brooke, I just need to understand what is is this extra 2 hours? What is it for?
So as outlined in the admin report, so as we're seeing increased tourism, increased recreation, the workload, it has been increasing for this position. The proposal is to move this position to 4 days a week being available instead of 3. So to make those days equal, we added 32 hours and will help with the increased workload being available 4 days a week.
Counselor Hoodle.
So this person is a part-time position? Or does he or she do 10 hours? Like.
It's a part-time seasonal position, so 32 hours a week is the proposal. That's it from approximately May to October seasonally.
This isn't. Who is it? Willis? No. No. Okay. All right. Any final comments? Counselor Good?
So you're gonna go from 3 10-hour days to 4 8.
Okay. We'll have a vote. All in favor? Carried. Okay, EDF proposal for a summer student for economic and community development.
Be it resolved that, moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council approves the hiring of an economic and community development summer student effective the 2025 season and beyond at an approximate cost of $20,000 per year. And that council approves the MCD annually applying for funding to potentially offset the cost of this position if successful.
Comments? Counselor Good?
Did I hear that right? And beyond?
You
So
did?
it's gonna be continued year after this. We vote for this.
I have a little X beside that on my, for that very reason.
Yeah, no.
Counselor Hoodle?
How many summer students right now does our partner employ? Typically?
Sure. I have a concern about this position. I read the job description, job description essentially is what it was very, very detailed. What this position is going to do. So you have a student here for 4 to 4.5 months. I don't know what the true benefit of this is going to be. The individual just gets into it and then they go back to school. That's my concern. The benefit I see, there's a little bit of benefit to helping a manager of economic development, but there's more of a benefit to helping the actual student with their studies and work experience and so on. But I don't know if I'm willing to commit $20,000 to this point in time, especially when it says and beyond. Counselor Regent.
So this is to help Brooke. We can't expect Brooke to do everything. It's also a little bit of attention. And Brooke can't possibly be expected to do all this work.
So my question then is, I'll step in here. What is a student actually going to be able to do? How effective is he or she going to be? Because they're not here long enough to develop a relationship. And we all know that businesses are built on relationships as well as finances and ability to help one another and so on. So I have a concern that way. Counselor Hoodle.
So we talked about this at the task force and we debated on what to bring forward to the budget, and this is what was agreed upon. Summer students can be very valuable. I like the idea that the township of Frontenac hires summer students because I think it's important to give that awareness to students maybe getting into career and municipal service. So that's part of it for me, is to hire summer students for that reason. Brooke is the manager. I mean, she will be able to instruct or plan out the work for this person. Summer season is our busiest season, so I'm sure there's lots of work for that person to do. But on the same time, I don't know if I can vote on this right now because I want to know what we're going to do about other things.
Caveat that no one's mentioned is that there is information in the backup report that says there's a potential for grant funding up to about $5,000, which would cut this to a $15,000 hit. We could rejig this resolution to say, based on us being successful in that particular grant, and have it back to a 1 year, as opposed to ongoing year. I don't want to commit $20,000 a year for X number of years. Of course, we can always say it doesn't work and just.
The unfortunate part with those summer student grants, usually you get them halfway through the summer.
Let's know by December the 19th or something.
That's when you have to apply by.
Okay, yeah. Counselor Hermer.
Well, when we're potentially looking at possibly a $500,000 hit that we weren't expecting, it's kind of unnecessary to start empire building something that we don't already have.
Wish you wouldn't use that term, but yes, okay. Would everybody be comfortable if we just put this aside till we got through a little bit more of the budget? Is there enough willingness to move this forward until without seeing what, at least based on what we do with the rest of it? We're gonna know what your opinion is.
I would, if by that you mean it's not a no right this second, sure.
Anyway, I'd like to finish the rest of the budget and come back to this particular item. Okay,
Procedure, you want to defer this until when? Sorry, I need a bit more of it. Are you going after, let me go to, how about after 4/20/24, which is cruise in principle, the draft budget with the following amendment? That one?
no, where are you? Before we get here, I want to put it right here.
Ahead of 10I then.
Yeah,
Yep.
so before, it's part of the finalization.
Yep.
So do we have to vote on that? Okay. All willing to defer it till later in the agenda? Or pass? Okay. Item F, volunteer firefighter in-house training wages.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Udall. Be it resolved that council approves providing North Frontenac firefighters with an hourly in-house training wage starting January 2025 at an estimated cost increase for 2025 of approximately $15,000.
Comments? Counselor Hoodle.
So how are they paid now for training?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, currently North Frontenac Fire Department volunteer firefighters are paid a flat rate of $25 per in-house training session.
And how's Bear Calidar paid?
The majority, if not all, so to answer your question, Calidar Berry is paid hourly for in-house training, as is the majority, if not all of our neighboring departments and mutual aid partners.
Yeah, then I would say it's important to be consistent.
We had the discussion about benefits last year and we said, well, we're just depending on what Barry Calidar did and they weren't doing anything with it. So we either move forward with it and that hasn't happened, but this is a kind of an in loop. So any other discussion on this item? Counselor Fowler?
It's just a question for the chief is this going to accelerate people completing their requirements to be a firefighter.
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, the hope with this amendment to the pay schedule would be to increase retention, make becoming a volunteer firefighter more attractive to someone considering it. To answer your question on the rate of becoming certified, again, that solely depends on when the individual will join the department, what part of the year, when there is a recruit program currently going on. This is more of a change to our pay scale to increase retention, to make it again more attractive to somebody considering becoming a volunteer. The provincial mandate and the steps to comply with that provincial mandate would be unchanged as a result of this.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of the motion presented? That's carried. Okay, limited reopening of the Ardoc waste site.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council approves the estimated cost of $17,700 to be funded from the waste closure cost obligatory reserve fund with an estimated year-end balance in 2024 of $775,253.
Comments, discussion? Counselor Hoodle?
So it says here, approve the starting of the process. I mean, when we open a waste site, do we not, I mean, does that include public consultation? And what's involved in there, Carmen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. When Ardoc was temporarily closed, the closure order outlined the steps required to reopen it, including additional studies, reviews, public consultation, public notice. So what I was suggesting here that we start the process. I wouldn't see it ever opening on a limited basis in 2025. I see 2025 being spent on the process.
Counselor Hermer?
What do you anticipate the end value will be in this?
So the Ardoc site, when it was closed, and the notices that went out, so it was closed on a temporary basis, and they estimated about 15 years because of the excess capacity. So there's still about 18,000 cubic meters of capacity at Ardoc that can be used. And what I'm suggesting here is I've called it limited because I'm not suggesting we open it to the public with staffed hours and everything. But we currently haul garbage from the Cloyne transfer station and the Ampa transfer station to 506 in Plevna and the odd time to Mississippi. So this would only be open for our access. We would haul that garbage to Ardoc instead of 506 or Plevna. So we're saving capacity there and we're making use of capacity that Ardoc has. And we can manage it more effectively. Right now, we show up at 506 or Plevna and we dump an entire truckload. And if we don't get it covered right away, the animals are into it, the wind's at it, the litter, where at Ardoc with it open in this manner, we'd keep cover there. And if we'd have the roads, the bulldozer, if it wasn't out elsewhere, and we would cover on a really regular basis. And I'm sure that would be, a requirement of getting approval would be that it be covered on a daily basis. So
That makes sense.
Deputy Mayor?
Could you remind us why Ardoc was closed in the first place? My memory is that it was proximity to Malcolm Lake and some leachate coming out. What has changed?
the notice, I wasn't here when it was closed, and the background, the notice that went out to residents addressed excess capacity at that time. Plevna was open and they didn't need Ardoc open and fully staffed. As far as leachate proximity to Malcolm Lake, all of that would be included in the reports and studies and a condition of reopening. And if if those reports do find there's detrimental effects off-site, then it, we wouldn't be allowed to open it until that was addressed. So
Counselor Hoodle?
I just want to confirm. So if we start this process, there will be public consultation.
there will be, yeah. I think opening it, and it's never going to get any easier to open or any cheaper, and it's going to be sensitive whenever we do it. I think the limited opening would, should be and would be less sensitive than a full opening. But I think it's so many of the concerns are, odor, litter, rodents, and that's so much easier to manage if we're just hauling in and managing the site, on a daily basis and not open to the public.
Deputy Mayor?
So if we approve $15,000 this year, what are we in for in the next 2 or 3 years before it possibly opens?
I understand with Cambian's work on it, it's 17,000 something, and that should get us through the process and be at the point to open. So I don't know, there may be some site improvements and work. I wouldn't think that that's included in that 17, but
So Darwin, how many trucks a week do you expect going in there?
probably only maybe 2 from Cloyne and 1 from Ampa, like so three a week or so.
Are these always the same vehicle? So that,
Yeah,
like, there wouldn't be 3 trucks there at the same time.
No, it's our vehicle. It's our lift truck. We haul all the recyclables and the garbage, and this would just be garbage. So it's our truck and our staff hauling in, dumping, and the same truck all the time. Just that's probably 3 trips a week.
So that will allow you to schedule the equipment to cover it and everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
Counselor Hoodle?
So what happens if we don't approve it? Where do these trucks go?
Well, we would continue typically dumping Cloyne at 506 and Ampa usually at Plevena. Ampa could go Mississippi or Plevena. It's just we're more equipped at Plevena to cover it and deal with it when we don't. Because we don't always have a machine sitting at Mississippi. So it isn't, you can decide it. I'm just suggesting it this year and to start the process because it will take some time. But
My only concern is the proximity to the lake. So
yeah, and that would definitely be covered in the studies and the Ministry of Environment Conservation and Parks is we can't impact adjacent properties. If it's determined that's happening or going to happen, then we'd have an issue. Similar to what we're doing, we went through the additional wells and the additional investigation at the cache site. That's through a similar process, and we're sampling and we have to determine there if there's a potential impact. So,
Mr. Hermer?
Well, in my opinion, if it can be done safely, I think it's important that we maintain all the capacity that we possibly can.
So good.
I agree with Councilor Herber on this one. It's gonna prolong the life of the other 2 waste sites, and this is the only limited one. I'd like to see it like this and stay limited, not to allow people to dump it in there, and then we've got to hire a attendant all the time. This way here, there's nobody that'll be standing by there. So I think this is a good idea.
I agree. I think even if we have to do it down the road, or this may show that this is not an acceptable site for future development or continued development. So if we don't spend the money now, we're maybe behind doing it 5 years from now. Okay, all in favor of this motion? That motion's carried. Okay, so here's the 10-year capital plan.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, second by Counselor Herber. Be it resolved that council approves the 2025 summary of the 10-year capital plan, 2025 to 2034 tangible capital asset replacement schedules, planned spending, and the council authorizes the CAO and managers to proceed with the applicable 2025 tangible capital asset capital purchases and tenders in accordance with these schedules and the procurement bylaw.
Okay, so after this, we get through this item, and that's all the stuff here in the book. Then we'll discuss this proposed summer student. Okay, and that will do it. Pardon me? Yes. I just saw lunch come in, so we'll just get into this. I'd like to go through the budget information that we've all got. And I'm sure we've all read. And we'll go through it section by section, and I'll go through it quickly because we're supposed to have done this. So if you have any questions in the section, that's it. We'll leave the section. Once we leave it, we're not going back, hopefully. Okay. So the first item is the default budget. It's first 2 pages. Any questions, any comments? On the second page, this is the Kelly, the last item right above, actually additional contribution for roads, TCA reserve fund. It says $35,788. That was last year, right? That was that 35,000 we added in.
Yes, so that's the 35,000 that was added last year after the 1% discussion.
Okay,
You're seeing nothing here in 2025 because we just kind of moved that whole information under the roads department. So that 35 is carried forward and then the additional 1%.
okay. Those two. Anybody else? Okay. On to council. So the first page is we've got conferences. We've got $5,000 in there. Do you want to leave that there? Do you want to increase it? It should probably go to 6,000 at least, because last year was $5,633. It's not a big deal. Do we want to add, like, for us to actually do a delegation, you need 2 counselors going to a conference. So there's your $5,600 right there. It's not the conference, that's the cost. It's the everything else that goes along with it. So I'm proposing that would be line 5180. $180. It's on the first page. 50180. Yeah.
Yes.
We overspent $653, and that's reasonable to assume we're going to keep doing that. That's two councils going.
We need to look at the whole amount then.
Okay. This is your time. You think it should go up? It should go down? What?
Didn't we discuss last year that why do we even have them for counselors? I thought we discussed there was one for the mayor and one for the deputy mayor. And now we've got one, like, am I missing something? I thought we took the counselor conferences out last year.
It was 12 or 12,500 before, and we cut it back to 2 counselors or 2 conferences.
I'd be happy to cut it back to just the mayor and the deputy mayor.
Well, that's the 2. It doesn't have to be the deputy mayor. Doesn't have to be the mayor. But if you want a delegation, you need to be going to the conference.
What kind of delegation, just to refresh my memory, would you be talking about?
Well, the one that the council sent us to talk to the Minister of Health last year.
Okay, which got us absolutely nowhere, right? So like unless there's a delegation that is like, we know there's gonna be a really good result from it. I just, we're taking money out of local businesses' chance to improve themselves, but we're sending counselors to conferences. I have a real problem with this.
Councillor Hoodle and Deputy Mayor.
So I think the original number from 2 years ago, I believe, was 12,000, is that correct?
Yeah, 12 or 12 and a half, yeah.
I think 2 conferences are important because delegations are important. And that's one of the things that I suggested last year. If we're going to go to conferences, we have to make sure we do a delegation. So unless we don't do a delegation, then we probably shouldn't go. But there are many times, I mean, to say that a delegation doesn't get us anywhere, it gets us a lot. We have to go to these delegations, so. I mean, if you're gonna go from five, because we spent 56, go to 6,000, that's $400, that's fine.
That's the deputy mayor.
I'm afraid I have to disagree with you, Councillor Goodall. I don't feel that delegations have brought us very much. My understanding of going to a conference is it's about learning and networking. We're a tiny municipality and I think they receive us politely and do nothing, as Stephanie says.
Hey, if, you know, we can network on our own. There's plenty of opportunities for networking. You just have to find them. So again, like, not to like repeat myself, but I have a real problem with this when we're looking to put some money somewhere else that we could actually use it.
Counselor Good.
Yes, I've been to lots of conferences and, we've had lots of delegations and I don't recall, or maybe Corey or somebody else can help me, but I don't think one of them has done us any good.
Okay, so I've done one delegation, but I've done that level before, and I never go in expecting we're gonna get an answer. They're nice to you, they listen to you, and every now and then something does come up. Yeah, that's true. But you're still making the point. And like, it's about being seen, it's about, you know, talking to your neighboring councilors, neighboring mayors and so on. It may seem like a good time, but the reality is you're making connections that you can use down the road. We've been building those and trying to strengthen them. So to send two people to a conference, well, like there's 3 conferences or 4 conferences every year that are worthwhile. You know, I don't think $6,000 is a lot to ask. Councillor Fowler.
I agree with you. I believe that the delegations are important. I think they might have a ripple effect later on after the delegation does their presentation. But there is a lot of things that I've benefited from being at these conferences. And it's, if you got to look at it, how much and how best you can learn. And I don't regret going to them. I think they benefited me a lot.
Deputy Mayor.
Just one last comment. The question is, are we going to change this $5,000 figure? I'm actually in favor of increasing it back closer where it was in the past. I said, I think there's value in any counselor interested in a conference, and there are 4 major ones each year, should be allowed to go with a slightly larger budget than $5,000.
The cost is, the conferences run about $600 or $700. It's the hotels which run $300. And then there's your $200 per diem, and there's parking and everything, you know. So $5,600 was the cost of the Roma conference last year for both Councillor Fowler and myself. But, you know, there was no extra dollars, anything above what we're allowed came out of our pocket. So I'm just saying $6,000 just rounds the 5,600 off, and it's more realistic than 56 or 5,000. Doesn't have to be, stay at 5,000. Or in Councillor Regent's case, she would have it all gone. Councillor Fowler.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm going to the Roma concert or conference rather this January, but it'll be on the county.
Okay, Councillor Herman.
My question would be, what actual value does that bring back that we can pass on to our residents?
It's not something that you're going to be able to measure objectively. It's very difficult. It's, if you want to look at networking, that's the greatest value of a conference. Sometimes the information you get is debatable. Sometimes you can't hear it, whatever, but it's what happens outside the sessions. Councillor Regent.
So reach out to your MPP and or your MP, go to an event. That's networking and that's free.
Still got to get to the conference. Well, then why did we send? Why did this council send us? You were one of the first ones to vote for it, and so were some of the others. Why did we go to do a delegation to the Minister of Health over how it was at Grassroots Ontario to procure medical assistance?
Because healthcare is a crisis in this country. And I don't believe that, with all due respect, I don't think the feds, it was the federal minister you spoke to, I believe.
Minister of Health for the province of
Province,
Ontario.
she was on the news the other night talking about the same thing she's been talking about for months. With all due respect, the crisis is not going to get solved by us going to a conference with a delegation. She has way bigger fish to fry than that.
Anyway. Counselor Hoodle.
So repeat, I'm fine with $6,000. I think delegations are important. I've gone to many of them. So I agree with your $6,000.
Anyone else? Final say? We're going to vote on whether or not 5633 goes in and becomes 6,000. And if that gets turned down, then we'll vote on whether the 5633 stays in at all or whatever, or a different figure. This okay? Did I get that right? Can I make a motion? No. Roy, do you want to make this?
Yeah, I guess we're gonna increase it to $6,000 just to make it realistic in today's money.
Councilor Power, second.
I'll second it.
Kelly, the account number is 100-0-50180. Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council increases the budget for 100-0-50180 council conferences to $6,000.
All in favor? That motion's passed. Anybody else have any comments on this section? Council? Sorry, go ahead. I only left because I didn't think anybody else.
No, I'm just questioning the, I can't see where it is right now, but the, our sort of, no. Internet usage, printer, all that kind of stuff, where we get the, is that not on this section? What is the value, Kelly?
The total is $4,200. So there's 300 per counselor for what's deemed computer office supplies and 300 for personal internet allowances.
Yeah, so
The wording.
do we really need that?
Yes. Yes.
Why? I have internet anyway.
Well, it's not in this, is it in this section of the budget?
Yes, it is.
Which item?
I'm not sure why we each need $300 for internet.
Let's do it. All right. Any comments? So, Councilor Hermer.
Well, we have a real big problem trying to get people to run for council to begin with. And here we are going to nickel and dime it so that eventually people are going to say, what the hell's the point in going there?
I don't think anyone's running for council because they're going to get $300 for internet. With respect, that makes no sense.
Well, if you have no money, and some councils in the neighborhood do have no money, they're just there. They're on like minimum wage or gains and so on. And it makes a big difference. And we have no other benefits. And literally, the internet costs you $1,000 a year, maybe a little less depending on your provider.
You can take my 300 out. I have Wi-Fi in 2 places. I don't need it.
And then you have money for, paper, all that stuff and everything else, and printer ink. So,
My only point is that I'm paying for internet anyway. That's my point.
does anybody else have an issue with this? So you, Counselor, the Deputy Mayor?
My only issue is process. We spent 20 minutes talking about $1,000, $1,500. I just see that the amount of time and energy we put into trivial items and the amount of time and energy we put into major philosophical discussions like, do we fund the CIP? It's just out of all proportion.
Okay. So do we have a motion to, well, what's your motion, Stephanie, or Counselor Regent? Be formal.
Could make a motion. He brought it up.
I'm not necessarily making a motion. Do we really need it? That's all I'm saying.
I think we do, and I think
If council thinks we need it, we'll leave it in.
because then it extends to the Committee of Adjustment as well after that, so. Yeah. So in fact, I won't say. Okay, so my last issue, does anybody else have another issue before I bring up one more? It's just a question. I'm not seeing any. Item 50330, insurance, counselor policy, what's that cover us for, or what is it? Is it liability?
That's some liability and travel. It gives you some travel insurance.
Okay. So when we're going to someplace for work
Work or personal.
or personal?
Yep.
Oh, I can see how that works. I can just see that. Okay. All right, so is lunch here? Why don't we break for
Believe I
lunch and then
saw
we'll go right into the administration. I know you have some issues. We will continue with our operational budget review. The department we're looking at now is administration. Any comments? Counselor Hermer.
Yes, I see $34,000 for computers. How many? 2 questions. How many computers and did anybody consider upgrading instead of replacing?
So we do all of our computers through our IT agreement with the county. So the county looks after all of our IT needs. The 34,000 is a projection. Often we don't go that high. We do just replace based on need. And in part of the agreement is that our computers remain in warranty. So they do get replaced about every 3 years. The main computers, but so for the fire departments, they often get the hand-me-downs and we kind of cycle them through.
Oh, okay, so you don't know how many will actually be replaced then?
I don't have that number today, no.
But this is the result of an agreement with the county of Frontenac, right?
Yeah, and it's all kind of an in and out of the reserves, so we do just replace based on need once it's established.
Anything else in this section from anybody? Counselor Hermer.
Yeah, the economic development officer, I see he was paid up till July 15th, and yet his resignation letter was effective immediately, April 22nd. Why that extra payment?
Okay, so that is just a note for 2024. At the time of budget, his contract was until July 15th. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what he was paid until. That is just a note from 2024 that at the time we did the budget, that contract was in place until July 15th.
But there was $70,000 paid.
So the budget was 70,000.
83,000.
Salary budget for 2024 was 70,000. Currently, the actuals is sitting at 40,000.
Which budget line are we talking about?
Counselor Hermer's gone to economic development under,
Oh, it's supposed to be under administration, Vern.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back to you. You're the next item up. We'll continue that. Okay. How about the administration section? I have a question. US exchange accepted at par? Why do we do that? It's 40 or 42 cents on the dollar right now.
so we've always accepted it at par. So if someone chooses to pay in American dollars, we're not giving any exchange. So that is the money the extra money we get because somebody
So it's-
paid
it's
in
positive
US.
for us.
It is.
Okay. So we don't have to pay back in American then?
No, no.
Okay,
So just
all right.
anyone that chooses to pay us with like a US check or in US funds, there is no exchange provided.
Anybody else under administration? All right, seeing none, we're gonna go on to economic development. So Vern, which line with the computers are you talking about? Which section are you under? No. What's the budget line? 51? 0100.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is it? Okay.
Yes.
So, Council Hermer, the actual was $40,369 in 2024 for that position. So when we, that's why you're seeing that the actual, the budget was higher than that, but with the resignation and all that, that's what it ended up being, was $40,369. Correct. That wouldn't have been charged.
It was actually, that number was 83,000 when we took it out of the budget last year.
Benefits and OMERS and all of that, correct?
No, so they're on a separate line. So if I can clarify, that line is not strictly that was previously the EDO position. It also includes a portion of Brooks' position in there. So this is not strictly one line for one position. And that note is a 2024 note. And then there still is some year-end adjustments, so that 40 may change because we still have to do like allocations for year-end. But that line is a combination of, in 2024, the EDO position and the part of the MCD. This year is the portion of the manager of community development and then the proposed new position, summer position.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else under economic development?
We've never discussed that.
Well, we can do that right now. Which line are you looking at?
It's under the 50100.
50100.
Thought we were discussing that at the very end.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, sorry, I said, yeah, that's.
Oh,
what
that's
we
very
agreed
end,
to.
okay.
That's it, though, but that's the 20,000.
So this other part here, it says, the MCD, that $50,000, that's part of Brooks. In Brooks in this good part.
Okay, before we leave economic development or anything else? Okay, moving on to the sundry section.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I missed one. I had it marked in there on economic development. Just a question. And it's under 50265. This is branded material program. What's that? $15,000. Oh, it's in the lobby out there. Oh, so that's an in and out basically. Yeah.
Mr. Hoodle. Yeah.
No, it's not.
They do.
The usage at the North Frontenac Food Bank is up over 60%.
What are your thoughts, councilors?
Need to give this one some money. It's in our township.
Which
As
one?
long as if they're giving to back to the community.
Yes. $2,000 each?
Yeah, because they both serve roughly half the population.
They do.
For the motion, what is it called?
So it's on under,
North Frontenac Food Bank is what it's called. And could I just ask a clarification question to our CEO? Is this something that we should be adding to an exemption policy for the community grants policy? Because those other ones are exemptions to our community grants policy. Is this something council's wanting to see every year, this 2,000 as an exemption?
well, the issue is we're spread out like this. So if we're giving 2,000 to this side, we're giving 2,000 to this side. Okay.
Completely makes sense. I just wanted to know if it was going to be an
So I
annual
think it
exemption.
should be there on a regular basis. Councilor Raja.
I'm not sure who could answer this question, but why are we paying $700 for these planter boxes? If you're a business and you request a planter box from this
Hang on,
program,
Councilor Regent, your question's valid. Hang on there for a second. Let's take this $2,000 first, then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
They want us to have a box.
Yes, please.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Regent. Be resolved, the council approves providing $2,000 to the North Frontenac Food Bank and that this be added as an exemption to the community grants policy.
Does that mean we'll be in here every year, or we have to redo this every year? Pardon?
Yes, that would mean it would be in there every year.
All right, all in favor of that? Carried. Okay, Stephanie, you're on board.
No, I'm just wondering, this planter box thing, so like if you're a business and you request one of these boxes, you have to pay them a fee every single year to have it, or they take it away. So why are we paying $700 and how many boxes are there? Like, I just curious what this is about. I know there's one out front here I've seen, but I'm not sure why the township needs to pay the $700.
Yeah, and I hope I'm gonna give the same answer Corey was gonna give. Um, so the township has several of these boxes at community halls. We have one at our township office. So we're paying for the maintenance on the boxes that are on municipal property.
That's at $700. No? Pardon? Yeah, there's also, maintenance of Pioneer Cemetery there too. Okay, so you okay with that answer, Stephanie?
Well, it's an answer, which is fine. Anyways, I had an experience with this program, and typically the garden club will come back and take this stuff out of these things that they leave, and then I didn't realize they were actually charging you to maintain them.
So that part of that $700 is all the maintenance they do at the Pioneer Cemetery. So I believe, do they still cut the grass there? That's part of our contract now, but they do all of the gardening and they do raking and all kinds of stuff there correctly and annually. They always did anyway. So that's what that 700, that pays for that portion too. So it's not just for planter boxes, it's the stuff they do at the Pioneer Cemetery as well.
Anybody else?
I just,
Counselor Good?
yeah, I just don't understand where on the budget for 2025 compared to 2024, sundry is up $15,000. I actually know where the 5,000 is. It's in the LNA hospital thing there. But the other 10,000, what comes up so much? I can't see it why it's up another $10,000.
Well, that's for the doctor incentive, because last year it was funded from reserves and this year it's not.
Oh, okay, that's where it's from. Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Okay,
Plus,
so-
I do caution looking at those numbers, because in a lot of departments, we had reallocated from that property building maintenance, so it is going to skew those. So that's why we really didn't dive into by department how much they're going up, because they will be skewed a little bit by reallocating that one whole department.
Okay, thank you.
The Santa Claus parades. When's the last time we changed the amount of going to those parades? Like, it's only $400 each. You know, should it be $500 or $600 each? I don't know. Is 400 enough? I mean, the Lions Club, this sort of self-funded. But the Fireman's Parade and so on.
So we haven't had any requests for more. So typically if they're needing more, they'll come and request it. So we haven't had any comments to us anyways that they need more for those events.
They will now. So there you go. Okay.
They take donations out of anyway too, besides.
Because they both groups do a great job, so, you know. Okay. Anything else under sundry, because we're about to leave it. Okay. The next item is fire. That's a big one. Okay. Right on. Seems to be quite comprehensive. Counselor Fowler.
I'm trying to look up dry hydrants. How many do we have and who maintains them, and is it in here how much it costs?
Yeah, of course, sorry. Adam, would you mind answering that question?
Mr. Mayor, through you, currently we have 13 hydrants in the municipality. And we test them annually and then through, Brooks Department, we maintain the grass, in summertime care of them. And then we look after snow plowing and stuff as well in the winter.
Do all 13 function?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we done with that section? Next section is police. We had that this morning. Corey Kelly, go ahead.
So I'm just not sure what point, I'm looking for some direction about this funding that was announced last night that we're getting, whether council is in agreement with my proposal that we put some into a reserve. So I need some direction on that.
By doing that, we're actually phasing in this increase over 2 or 3 years now, right? What are your thoughts, Councilor? Councilor Hu?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Can you put your recommendation back on screen? Is that easy or not?
Saved $147,480. We want to assign, your suggestion is assign 83,900 to this year and 63,000 to 2026 year. And we have 36,800 in surplus funding we can assign for this year as well.
Yes, so originally, our total was the 1.1 million. In this budget, I proposed that the 62,000 would be funded from surplus from 2024. Of course, now that we've got this funding, trying to keep it simple, the bill we received was for 950 plus the 62. So my recommendation is that we take some of that 147, so 83,000 from the funding, and then 36,000 would still come from our anticipated surplus because that 62 is still going to be expensed in 2024. So the sort of net effect is that we would reduce the levy increase by $58,000.
And next year,
Then next,
well, you still need, it says increase in dollars to be raised 57,000. So that's 0.73% of the levy, right?
yes, yeah.
And next year, it's just over 1%.
Yeah.
Councilor Hermer?
Kelly, what would happen if we got lucky and got an adjustment again next year?
Well, I guess if we got funding again next year, then we would probably continue to try to phase over. My understanding is 2027, they're going to be back into negotiations, which then I don't know if that means in 2028, 2029, we're going to be in the same situation. I'm sure we'll all be a little more prepared if the negotiations last a couple of years. So I mean, I think we can just keep moving it forward, but it really is council's decision.
Everybody comfortable with this? All right, so we'll move on. That's good the way it is. Oh, sorry,
So
we have to have. It's election years, lots of money out there. The Eastern Ontario Gordon Caucus letter to the province basically talked about lack of transparency with this. And they talked about the amount, but it was really like equal parts. He didn't tell us, didn't forewarn us, he just said, here it is. And there's a lot of people really upset over this. So we talked about it, different motion. Okay. There's still a motion on the first September letter. We should probably have a motion to take it off.
So this wasn't a result of us sending any letter.
No, we elected not to send it because we contacted the MPP and said, what are you doing? Please.
Moved by Counselor Good, second by Counselor Regent. Be it resolved, the council instructs the treasurer to incorporate the $147,480 of OPP funding by allocating $83,970 to 2025 and placing $63,510 in the contingency reserve fund to be used in 2026 to offset the OPP costs.
Final comments? In favor? Carried. Livestock loss, we know that's gone. Conservation authorities. It's $1,000 difference. Building department. Okay, so next section, bylaw enforcement. Next section, protection and emergency services. Section is animal control. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. That includes a $6,000 increase for, or it's the increase of 6,000 for the Kingston Humane Society. Streetlights is not an issue. Now we're into the big one, the roads. And this is where we had the discussion this morning. About culvert. So this, Kelly, this is set up so it's assuming we are getting the grants and we're going ahead with contracts.
Yeah, so we do incorporate the grants that we've submitted into the budget, but we will not go ahead unless we receive the grants.
I have a question in my mind, Darwin. Darwin, we've got so much for fuel. It looks like almost half the fuel is for idling vehicles. Is there any way we can change that?
Mr. Mayor, what was the sorry, what was the question?
Well, when I read it, I don't know exactly where it is. I'm looking at fuel usage. And so much of it is for mileage, for traveling. But some of it is for, a good portion of it is for when the vehicles are idling. Anyway, we can cut that down, or am I reading this entirely wrong? Corey?
I think that's under the capital plan, the one truck that you're replacing. I think there was a comment there about idling. I think that's what I'm
Oh,
referring
okay.
to.
Oops. I don't remember. Just remember that I'm going, I got this stuff highlighted, but getting to it is,
Yeah, that was under capital, and I think for those units, idling's high. Like they fill that with cold patch and they're along the road. So a slow moving operation, so there's a lot of idling time. And then if they're at scenes or operations where they're flagging, it's idling with the beacons and lights and everything on too, so.
okay. Kelly, where's the item where we're putting in the $70,000? We're supposed to do that.
So it's under contributions to reserve.
What's the number?
So under object code 58600, you'll see 2025 new contribution of 71,915, which is the 1%.
It's right near
So
the
it'd be
very
like
end.
probably about the sixth last line, last page.
Yeah, last page.
You'll see 2025 new contribution.
And maybe this is where we should have the discussion about what we're going to do. We're going to increase that, leave it the way it is. Must be good.
I think we have to increase it, but by how much, I'm not sure.
What do you
Kelly,
think?
maybe Kelly could help us on this.
I'm thinking like 205,000 is 1.5%. Or even 100,000 flat, whatever. So I'm looking at the capital budget down the road. We're looking at 300,000. We've got the 700,000 and that's to cover everything else. So we got to get there. And here's another $500,000. Well, up to $500,000 we have to worry about. And then there's the 300 down the road. So how about some input from the rest of council? What do you think, folks? Deputy Mayor.
As I recall, the 1% annual increase each year got us to about 3.8 million balance at the end of 10 years, and that was below our target. Is that right?
Yes.
In order to recommend something, I think we need to know what would be the annual increase to get to our target. It's going to be something more than 1%, but we don't know, and you haven't calculated that number yet.
When I proposed last year, the 1% would get us to the target. That's without doing the 300,000. If we wanted to incorporate the 300,000, it would be 2%. The only thing that I'm hesitant about is we have committed a lot of money to grants that are really unknown. So, I mean, certainly is not a 1.5% here today is not going to, may not be the recommendation straight through if we, are not successful with the grants, because that really changes the 10-year plan. At the same time, we can always do more work. So, so it's certainly not gonna be lost, but
It sounds like we can make a recommendation to do something for 10 years, but regardless of what we recommend for a 10-year increment, we're gonna reconsider it every year in any case.
yeah, so you can, I mean, the additional proposed work, we would use that when we go to redo our road studies, and it really helps work out the plan. So I mean, at that point, we really need a commitment to supporting that.
So last year when we discussed it and agreed on the 1% or $70,000, it was to get us to roughly 1.4 million. We're already spending 700,000 and was allow us to get our road work up to where we should be or very close to it. And we knew at that point in time that we had a transition piece, because we couldn't keep relying on the Canada Building Fund reserve, and we didn't have enough in our own reserve to keep doing this. So it was, 70, 140, 210, and you get us up to 700,000. But we've got 340 some thousand up at Matachewan Road. You have a $500,000 culvert. Okay. So it's 1.5% more reasonable, and it will still get us over 10 years up to where we need to be, and then some. That's the reason I'm looking at. Not today, looking at where we're going to be. How do we get there? Councilor Fowler.
Yeah, I like your idea of a 1.5% increase. I think it's a lot of money, but I think we have to do something about this culvert, and we got to be able to pay for it.
Just don't think of the culvert. Think of the overall. We have to go to 26 or 27 kilometers a year. Darwin?
Our target is about 26 kilometers a year.
We got to 17 last year.
Yeah, last year we forecast only getting 12, but with the ability to mix single and double surface treatments and the tender prices we got, we were able to get about 17.
And we're thinking of maybe changing the way we do business, which would make it a little more cost up front, but give us longer life at the end of the day.
That's right. I'm looking at some of these options with micro surfacing and some other technologies.
What do the rest of you think? Councilor Hoodle?
So I like the 1.5, but I just want to know what, by doing 1.5 now, what is the percentage of the levy? I need to see the effect. But where are we? Because we
So you want to look at 1.5 for the next 10 years? Is that what you're looking to see what?
That will give you 350,000 on top of the 700,000, which is exactly where we're supposed to be, according to what we budgeted here.
But so the 71 was 1% roughly.
Yes,
So if we add 0.5%,
yes.
I just want to know where we are in the tax.
Oh, in the tax levy, sorry.
Yeah. I need to have that number in the background.
Yes, I got you. So currently with the decisions made so far, we're at 4.33 with the 1.5%.
1.5 with the 1.5% included.
With the contribution being a 1.5%. So it adds 35,960 is what I calculated. Instead of the 71,000. And then with the other adjustments that have been made so far. So far we removed 15,000 for the CIP. We added 1,000 for council conference, 2,000 for the North Frontenac Food Bank, subtracted the 58,000 for the OPP funding, and then just added 35,960, which puts us at 4.33.
Like a motion. So hang on. Yeah.
I just kind of thinking out loud here before everybody closes it up, is we've got this extra money coming in from the OPP and we're basically got I think a pretty, good. We're staying down below the 5%. That's what I'd like to see. I just wonder if we should be actually putting more into this now instead of waiting for 2 years and then have to hit harder. For those of us who are still here in 2 years.
Might be none of us.
So you're suggesting round it up to 4.5?
Yeah.
And we aren't done yet. We still have that item with the part-time summer student, right? Pardon me? That's $20,000.
Yeah.
Is it in there? Yeah. Yeah.
So everything that's been proposed is in there. So it's really,
We didn't vote on it yet though, so it's still in there,
How much was the percentage for that student?
0.3.
0.3?
25.
Yeah, how much is 20 or 70? Could be 0.3. So 4.03% if you took that student. And
I'm just saying this because I'm thinking we should be trying to get up to what we're supposed to be with roads sooner. Yeah. Because we're just gonna keep depleting the surfaces that's there. Darwin can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm just gonna keep depleting it if we don't catch up on it.
So I like what Councilor Good is saying. You round it up to 4.5, you leave the summer student in there and everybody's happy.
Nice try.
about 12,000. Approximately. $4.83 if I do another 1%.
That was 0.2% or 2%, 0.2%. 2%. I'll give a motion for 2%.
Kelly, can you give me some wording for where, like, is it an amount or should I put the 2% and what line this needs to be allocated to? So it'll be increase the contribution to the roads TCA to 2%. Well, it's carried, like it's still in there. Yeah, yep. Essentially. This is a new 2%. So the 35,000 was last year. I've already brought that forward. The proposal was a new 1%, which was 71. Right now on the table is a new 2%, which is 142.
Deputy Mayor.
I think we should keep in mind that the number we choose is a number we intend to keep in place for 10 years. So don't get too excited and go to 2%. Because when you compound that up over 10 years, it's a very large number, and I think it takes us over our TCA balance required in 10 years.
If that's the case, future council can adjust it. But we're trying to make that up now so we don't lose as much at the start.
So the history of North Frontenac Township's council is to always build up the reserve and have adequate dollars set aside. Sometimes we clash over that. But when you're looking at what the future is here, and I look at what happens in other townships, in other counties and so on, it's like, you know, the only debenture we have is for this building. And ventures cost you the interest on it. So, Councilor Good.
I think since I've been on council, which has been quite a while, is we've always tried to be proactive and looked into the future. Before I got on council there and like when we got the 506, 509, all that money gave to council for that, it was just blow that as quick as they could. And since then, the council's realized that we have to have money in reserves, be proactive.
So what was your motion? Sorry, Kelly?
Just a reminder too, like with having that money in the reserve is what's allowed us to apply for these grants because we have some money in the reserve. So I mean, it is important, and we may have or exceed our projection in 10 years, but then maybe that means we can do a little more work because we certainly are still not keeping up with the ideal scenario of maintenance. So I'm not sure we're.
Because our businesses our economy is based in tourism, whether you like it or not. There's other businesses, right, but tourism are the bottom line. And if we can't get tourists in and out, or reasonable transportation routes and so on and bridges, then we might as well just pack up shop and go visit Addison Highlands or Central Frontenac or somebody else. I don't want to ever do that. Okay, Tara, would you read the motion, please?
Moved by Counselor Good, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved that council instructs the treasurer to increase the contribution to the roads TCA to 2%.
Deputy Mayor?
I'll just comment, I'm going to vote against it simply because I think it's a bit too high. I'd be happy with 1.5.
Okay, so we're gonna, 2% on the table. If we pass it, that's it. If we don't pass it, then you can make the motion of whatever you want.
Sure. So we can change this next year. It doesn't have, we have,
I was just going to suggest we could save for 2025 and then, you revisit again next year. If you want.
I'm reluctant to do that. Because I'd rather be proactive and put it in there. Thinking of 2025 and beyond. We've already seen that today. And then the council has to make a decision later. I don't want to revisit this argument every year. The only argument I would like to revisit is, do we have enough? Do we have to add to it? Can we reduce it? And so on and so forth.
So you can always revisit every year. So just to keep in mind, so that is committing a new 2% increase next year. Plus you have already a 1% leasing. So before we start 2026 budget process, you have a 3% increase if you're committing to it, which just want to make sure everyone's
Any final
aware.
comments on this? I'm thinking, at some point in time, it's either now or it's down the road 5 years from now. And we keep falling behind the 8 ball, and we've learned that since the first day we had our orientation process here. So remember Darwin saying, Councilor Whittle.
so Kelly, I don't understand that. Why is the 3% starting off next year?
So this is so what is on the table right now for 2025 is a new 2% levy increase. So if you're going to do that every year, and do a new 2% every year. That's a 2% levy increase. So that means before you're out the gate, we're gonna have a 2% increase on the budget next year for the new 2%.
That includes the 1% on 71,000. We're putting away $142,000 essentially next year without inflation,
Yes.
or this year.
So say 2025, as it was put in, it was 108,000. So there was the 35,000 from last year plus the 70 some for this year. So it's 108,000. So if we stuck on the process of the 1%, 2026, that contribution is now 178. So it's the 108 that carries over, because it's not an increase, it's a carryover. And then there's a new 1% in 2026. In 2026, we would have a 1% tax increase, and we'd be contributing 178,000 into that reserve. We're talking about the impact on the levy.
No. No, the $35,000 that we put in last year was a one-time only.
No, so
That
the
was
30,
intent.
no. So the 35,000 went in and we've carried it forward. So if we did nothing else, there'd be no levy increase. We have 35,000. Yeah.
So it's just my understanding.
Yeah.
We were gonna put in 70 or 71,000 last year. And Wayne suggested, why don't we just put in 35,000 to start us off? It was a one-time deal. That 35,000 would become 71,000 this year. And we're only putting away 71. So 2% is 142,000, not 170,000. That's why I asked why the 35,000.
So that's,
As a new contribution.
so my proposal was a brand new 1% levy increase. So that means whatever you did the year before stays, and we do a brand new 1% the next year.
2% is too high. You can live with 1.5 then? Okay. Day two, have the motion. Okay, so right now, the motion on the table is 2%.
But it can say for 2025,
And then we can change it then if we want to, but right now we're behind the 8 ball by a long shot.
Okay,
These
hang on,
these
hang on.
roads.
I want Stephanie has her hand up.
Kelly, if we don't say it's just 2025, we will have the same, just, it'll just be another levy on top of a levy on top of a levy, so on and so forth, correct? So it would make sense to say it's for 2025.
I mean, it really is council's decision. I'm just trying to make sure that in making that decision, you understand, you know, the long term of what that looks like.
So Roy, then Wayne.
Okay, explain to me in dollars. 35, just round it up. $35,000 was going on regardless.
Yes, so
Then you
that's,
propose, then on this budget, propose a 1% increase, which was $70,000.
yes,
That's $130,000.
yes,
Now Counselor Good is asking for another 1%.
70.
So another 70 would be $170,000.
75.
Well, roughly.
yes.
Okay.
So in 2025, we would have $175,000 contribution. So now if we move that into 2026, we didn't do anything, there's no levy increase, but we're still putting in 175,000. But if we're doing the new 2% levy increase, which is kind of the proposal, then it would be a new $140,000. So that 175 will be 175 plus 140 in 2026.
So it's
Now it's 300 and.
okay.
Right, so I mean, because we're just talking about the impact on the levy. So if we take the $100,000 and bring it forward, there's no levy impact, there's no tax increase, there's no levy impact. Because it's the same number we used last year as this year. But if you want to do a new,
100,000,
pardon?
we're at the 100,000, that's the.
Yeah, 100, we're rounding, we're at
Yeah, we
100 now,
put 35 away last year,
35 and
70 this year,
70,
right, but
right? So
we have an
so
issue
if
of
you-
35. I do anyway.
We'll say we keep the numbers, we do 100,000 this year.
Yep.
We bring it forward. So we're gonna do 100,000 again in 2026. No levy increase. No increase to the taxpayer. Because it's already in there. They're already kind of covered.
Right.
So if you want a new, my proposal was a new 1%, which means now that 100 is 170,000. And then the following year, that 170, it would stay the same. So the 170 in the third year is there. And then the new 1% is another 70. So now we're at 240 in the third year. And it just keeps kind of multiplying.
So that's 71,000 that's in the books here.
Yes.
That's added to the 100,000.
No, that is part of the 100,000.
That is part of it.
That's, yeah. See, I have a different understanding of 35, but it's in there. I was looking at 2.5%, which is 175,000. So if we go 2% with 35 and we're at 171,000. I'm good with that, but. Counselor Hermer,
Well, I mean, how many years though will this keep increasing? Will that still increase for the next 10 years?
Well, so I mean, that's purely a council decision. And I mean, and you're going to make that decision looking at the 10-year plan, looking at the road studies that tells us, you know, what condition our roads are in. And, you know, that's part of the whole evolving with our asset management plan, where council's going to say, I want 50% of our roads in good condition. Well, then we're going to be able to say, this is the cost to have them in good condition. We haven't quite married those two items together yet.
So, but
So it really depends on the service level we want to offer for the roads maintenance and tax levy and putting that all together.
so what Deputy Mayor English said is true. And that if we continue with this trend, in 10 years, we'll be over our target.
Potentially, if we are still using the same numbers in the 10-year plan, but as we've seen in the last 3 months, we have committed almost $2 million that we weren't expecting as well. So I don't anticipate.
okay, we originally taught 10 years.
Yes.
Okay, so that was the 70,000 for 10 years. Okay. Now we're talking 2%, we're talking 140, 2.5%, we're talking 175,000 a year. So,
So
no, it's 140 additional each year. So you put away 140,000 this year, that 140,000 in the budget. Now you're putting another 140, that's 280.
well, if you're doing
Sorry, Kelly,
you're doing the 2%.
at 2%, 140,000. Put 140,000 away tomorrow for
Yep.
January 1. Next January 1, that 140 goes away again, but there's another 140,
Yes. Because it's 2%.
280. Then you add 140, that's 420, 560. Till we get up to where we need to be. So it depends for the next couple of years, 2% or 2.5 would be fine. And then where do you go? We have next council, so have to really look at this. Wayne?
That's what I was gonna say. The next council can look at it, but at least we're trying to catch up now instead of just keeping going behind all the time. If something happens next year, another $2 million goes out that we don't foresee, at least we're preparing ourselves for that kind of a deficit and drop. But if we don't keep preparing for it, we will keep falling behind.
Okay. So can we go back to the percentages for the final time?
And just one question too.
Sure.
When do we, I can't remember, when do we become a lame duck?
26. So it'll be October and then you're only a lame duck for about 4 or 5 weeks.
But typically, budget would be then in the new year because the new council would approve the budget, typically. That's what I've seen in the past. So I understand this accumulation. But my tax bill is going to be huge in 4 or 5 years.
Corey,
And so is everyone else's.
hang on, Corey.
Well, just based on this, Kelly, so as management, when we sit down next, so if council approves today what they've, the 2%. So when we sit down next year, when you say to the managers, bring your budget to us, we're starting out our budget this year at an increase. What are we starting at? Before council even considers anything, we would, based on today's discussion, what would we be starting at with an increase?
We assume the 2%, then we would be starting with 3% increase. Because we have 1% for policing and 2% levy increase, new levy increase for the capitals.
Plus cost of living.
And then you have everything else. that
So
goes
we
on top.
could be starting with a 4 or 5% before we even talk about any operational stuff.
Correct.
You.
So good.
If that did happen, and that's when the time would come that council could look at, say, okay, we're gonna have to decrease this, what's going in there. If that did happen like that, it's not, we can't look into the future and think we're gonna be that much ahead. We've gotta be proactive on it to start with, not reactive.
I also think you're not going to see a lot of grants after this year or next year, because it's election time, the money's flowing. And in 2 years, there'll be election, and it might be a little bit upfront, but they're not going to do anything for a couple of years. And some of the programs we've got, I don't know. We're kind of rolling the dice here best we can with limited knowledge. When we proposed this last year, my thought was, and I said it earlier, was we'd be up to where we need to be in 10 years, but getting there was going to be the hard part because we don't have enough. This will help us get over that hump to some extent. Help us keep a healthier reserve fund balance, and we should be okay. The only question is the amount. So Kelly, 2% was 4.33. Or 4.83. .5% was 4.33. Okay. So, yeah. Decision time, folks.
Okay, so the motion on the table is be it resolved that council instructs the treasurer to increase the contribution to the roads TCA to 2%.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. Carried. Okay. Waste disposal. We okay? Recycling. That essentially remains the same, right? Cemeteries? How about community halls? Counselor Hoodle.
Am I reading this right? 2024 budget is 119, 2025 budget is 269.
So that's the result of the reallocation of that property building maintenance. Because there's like some salaries and other things, so that's why.
Okay. The next section is recreation. And that assumes we're building a new roof and surface, ice surface and boards, or like a wall cart surface, tennis court surface, whatever. So at this point in time. Any comments on recreation? Not to get sidetracked, Darwin, but you guys put new signs at Shalomika Lake Beach this year. We talked about putting metal signs up or something.
I really can't say what we did this summer, but we have replaced them on a needed basis before.
Okay. Cause we're on somebody's speed dial every now and then, you know, so. Okay. We're on to North Frontenac Parklands. So to Brook, we received grants from the EOTA, Ottawa Valley ATV Club, and the Bytown Motorcycle Club. We received input. Revenue.
That's correct. The only confirmed one at this time is Bytown Motorcycle Association. But we have anticipated in this budget that we will receive money from the other groups, but it's not confirmed at this time.
Sorry,
Councillor Fowler, did you, at our last council meeting, Brooke wasn't there. You had mentioned that the OTA had discussions and they agreed upon, was it a certain number? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, it was $25,000 and they're anticipating that would go to the Schooner Lake Road project. Correct me if I'm out of.
I was listening in on the council meeting, so the money Councillor Fowler was referring to is to pay for this year's work.
2024. So we have no commitment for 2025. So if we don't get it, then we just won't do it. I haven't been up Schooner Lake. It's a long way in.
So the Schooner Lake Road project was completed this year already, and we already had the commitment from EOTA. The way their process works is they then bring the invoice to their meeting and then approve on paying the invoice. But that money was already committed for our agreement for 2024.
Okay.
So I haven't heard from them yet for what they are agreeing to contribute for 2025.
Probably come up in the next month or two.
I can leave you to carry that urgency and tell them we need an increase of about like $70,000 a year.
EOTA pays the most right now.
No, They do. So we actually have, that's a positive cost center for us, right? Make money out of it. How about libraries? What are we doing to the library? Bob, are we putting a new ramp in or putting a ramp in?
Yeah, there's a ramp there currently. I think what we're gonna look at trying to do is put an accessible door in.
Okay, we're on to planning. Okay. And then property building maintenance, well, that's all been moved, that whole section. And that takes us to the municipal tax section. The numbers that were in here were based on that 4.8%.
Correct, yeah.
And then there's the county. They were at 5.48, but they had, it was fluctuating because of input from funding from other bodies like Kingston.
Yeah, so for the county and education, I didn't update the numbers. I just carried the numbers forward from last year for now until I.
That go up a little, okay. And the last two sheets are property taxation. So before we leave those and discuss the potential summer student, is there anything else in that group of cost centers we go through that we didn't cover and you wanted to talk about? Okay. All right, so let's. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll do summer student, yeah. We have to do this. Okay.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council approves the 2025 summary of the 10-year capital plan, tangible capital asset replacement schedules, plan spending. And the council authorizes the CAO and managers to proceed with the applicable 2025 ECA capital purchases tenders in accordance with these schedules in the procurement bylaw.
Final comments. Deputy Mayor.
Do we have an upcoming capital plan, capital budget meeting to attend to? Or where are we at this? Do we actually have a levy increase to verify?
Kelly or Corey?
So the 10-year plan is what you're approving. That's on the table right now. So you have received the detailed 10-year plans.
Yes.
Because it kind of flows in and out of reserves, the levy impact is really the 2% we discussed. And then in my slide presentation, I, reviewed the capital reserves as a whole.
I'm thinking about a comment I might want to make about the discretionary the first reserve fund.
Contingency.
The contingency
Yeah.
fund, yeah. It has a target of 10 to 12%
Yeah.
of spending of the previous year. We're currently sitting at about 11.6%, I think. So we are above the minimum target. I think there's an opportunity there for a tax reduction by reducing the balance in that contingency reserve.
So probably we should start with what's on the table is the 10-year plan. So that's the capital plan, and then maybe then we can
Right.
review that.
Thanks, bye.
Okay, so on the capital plan. This is the vote. Are we okay with it? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Next. 30 seconds. Okay. So this is, by the way, that motion has been passed. So now we have the relocated proposal for a summer student.
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Deputy Mayor Engels. Be it resolved that council approves the hiring of an economic and community development summer student effective the 2025 season and beyond at an approximate cost of $20,000 per year. The council approves the manager of community development annually applying for funding to potentially offset the cost of this position if successful.
Comments? Yes. Okay, so what that makes it amended motion, right? So just for the 2025 season. Counselor Hoodle.
$20,000 is about 0.3.
We're
And it's already in the 4.88.
4.83, isn't it?
0.83, yes.
So we'll go to 4.80.
No, you go to 4.53,
I said it was already,
0.3.
sorry. Yeah, never mind.
Nah, major.
Really sorry, what is it before and what is it if we don't include it? Please?
So right now it's included, which was the 4.83. We take it out. It's 4.55.
Brooke, what happens if we don't do this?
So it would revert back to the discussions around the EDO position, is that this work just wouldn't be completed. With certain portions of it wouldn't be able to be completed.
Add to Brooke's comment, there'd be a lot of stuff that won't get done. We cannot continue to expect her to do all this work and or the people sitting on the task force. There are things that need a professional opinion, and even with Brooke's professional opinion, she still doesn't have time.
Well, I'm worried about Brooke's workload, so, but at the same time, Central Fund Act is bigger than us and they don't have them. This is the point. I mean, you look at, it's the percentage here. As much as I'd like to do this, I'm still thinking about it. Counselor Fowler, what do you think?
Try to keep the budget as low as possible.
And that translates into? All right. So are we prepared to vote on this resolution? The resolution will be, that's one in the books less and beyond.
Yeah, so, and council approves hiring the economic community development summer student effective 2025 season at an approximate cost of $20,000 per year. And council instructs Brooke to apply for funding for this position.
Let's go for a recorded vote.
Counselor Fowler,
No.
Counselor Good, Counselor Hermer,
No.
Counselor Hudel,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ingles,
Yes.
Counselor Regent,
Yes.
Mayor Lickey,
Say no. No, we don't want to say no to the red flag for the one that. Not acting like us. Very good job.
so the resolution is lost, 4-3.
What happened? Okay. Sure.
And maybe this is a question for Corey or Brooke, I'm not sure. You said you hire 4 students, correct? And this is up to you and management, like, is there an opportunity to use one of those students in this position?
No, honestly, the students that we have are really quite widely used within the two programs. So I would hate to take from that. And the majority of those are typically high school student jobs, whereas the economic probably would not be suitable for high school.
If I may, not to mention that we're not looking for just anyone to help Brooke, right? We're looking for someone specific with the required skills and the knowledge. And for the record, if she were to apply for the summer student jobs program where she would need that, she would ask for that $5,000, you would get it. So we're talking about $15,000. This is utilized by lots of people in this township. And I've never once in 5 years almost heard a no that somebody was turned down.
Okay, so that item did not pass. We have item I, please, Tara. Consideration of the draft budget.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved that council approves in principle the 2025 draft budget. And we can just leave it at that if there are no amendments.
Kelly?
I think Deputy Mayor had sort of a proposal just before we were considering the 10-year capital plan. So I didn't know if you still wanted to go forward about the contingency reserve fund.
Oh,
You
yeah.
Wanting to discuss?
Well, yeah, I made my comment. I feel that there's an opportunity here to reduce the contingency reserve fund within its target to a lower number. I believe there's something like $70,000 available. Would take us down to the 10% number.
That's the first one, right? So it's at 1.2 million. Our current balance is, as of November the 15th, is 1.186 million. And we want to be between 1.0 million and 1.2 million. So if we took 71,000 out of there, we'd reduce it to 3.83%. Well, 3.51%. Or should we move it across to roads? Sorry, taking money out.
I guess it's confusing because we don't have a single number target. We have a target 10 to 12%. Which do you choose? What was the intention of the decision makers at that time?
I think it's just to give a range to kind of stay within that we were comfortable with. So we are in that range right now. I would caution, we took, say, 71,000 out of here to offset this levy increase, then that is automatically making a levy increase next year. Because you're offsetting operations. So now, unless you're committing to doing that every year, you now are have another increase next year. So to avoid that, you want to reallocate 71,000. We're getting from there to roads and not do the levy increase, and then you're just taking from one reserve and putting into another.
Peter PayPal.
That wasn't my intention. My intention was to reduce the balance in that account to closer to its bottom limit.
By doing that, which is essentially at this point would be offsetting the levy increase, which then automatically creates an increase for next year, unless we have that funding to put in next year.
Yeah, so. Counselor Good.
I think we leave it the same, and it wasn't 10 or 12. It was 10 to 12 in that range. So I think we leave it as is, my opinion.
Anybody else have a comment on this? Because the idea is not bad, but we'll be good this year, but next year there's a problem. We just couldn't take the 71,000 and transfer it across to the roads budget and just do 71,000 extra in roads.
You can, for sure. So essentially what you would be doing is a 1% increase.
No, just put it in the roads budget and just do extra work.
Oh,
Increase the roads reserve.
so
by
stay with the
71,000.
2% and then transfer another 71, just a one-time transfer into the roads.
Take $70,000 out of the operating contingency, put it into this year's roads budget.
Okay.
So we do $70,000. We have $70,000 more available for road work, but the overall budget increase would be changed.
It could help for that Pine Lake culvert.
Or do we just leave it and see what happens with that culvert? Yeah. What do we use that for? What do we use the operating contingency for?
That's usually for some sort of unforeseen legal fees or sort of any other sort of operating unforeseen items that come along.
So does anybody else have an appetite for moving 70,000 out of this, putting it into this year's roads operating budget? I would I would need a mover and a seconder and then the vote.
Do you want to put it into their capital budget?
Yes. But we need a mover and a seconder. And I'm not seeing any.
Is this, you're talking about 2025 road budget?
Yeah, just adding to the roads budget for 1 year. The operating contingency is there. 1.186 would drop that to 1.116 or 115. Still within the.
Actually, the reduction in that fund to get to 10% is actually 129,000, not 70. I misspoke. 129,000 coming out would leave it at a 10% balance.
Counselor Good.
What would that do for us for next year, Kelly?
So because you're just moving it from one reserve to another reserve, it has no levy increase impacts.
Yeah, no, I don't mean the levy increase, but would we have to put money back into
No.
this?
So this would be just a one-time, which again, I might suggest that we can better look at what Erwin would do with those funds, which I suspect that 120,000 will go towards the Pine Lake project.
The reason I suggested is, even though we're putting 2% a year away, we still have to get there. The demand is here and we're doing this. And 125,000, 120,000. is money that we still meet the target over here, but it puts 125,000 into our road budget, so we can do maybe half the Pine Lake Culvert. That's just the thought. Deputy Mayor.
So if we do this and take that contingency reserve down to 10% now, then any unforeseen expenses that happen in 2025 will have to come from a levy increase next year. Is that right?
Potentially, I mean, it is our policy to keep it within 10 to 12. So if it does drop below that 10%, then we have the discussion, how do we get it back up? And maybe it's a phase in to get it back up, or, depending on the amount, it may, be a 1 year. Obviously phasing those kind of things is better than just a one-time hit, but then that would be the discussion next year when we're reviewing that reserve.
So right now, this 125,000 acts as a buffer for us above the 10%.
So right now, we have a reserve fund policy that we put in place last year, and it suggests to keep that reserve between 10 and 12%. So right now it is sitting between 10 and 12. Deputy Mayor Inglis is suggesting maybe we're better off to stay at the lower end at the 10% and take the difference and allocate it to the roads capital program.
Yeah, good. So other than the roads budget, we're in pretty good shape all the way through. And we're looking at that. If we're giving you free money, you're not going to say no.
Well, no, I'm just going to substantiate it. Well, the Pine Lake culvert's a given. It's just what the cost is going to be. I would lean towards a liner and, half, like around 250 or something as the anticipated cost. I expect a report from a consultant next week that will have a recommendation of whether, when it needs to be done, it may be flagged as like almost immediate. I'm sure with Hills Lake and some other culverts, we've had a really good working relationship with Mississippi Valley and a quick turnaround, and we've done our part by providing them the technical reports required. So I'm certain we'll get approval for a smaller diameter that'll support doing the liner. So
This particular item we're discussing about really is up and above the actual budget discussion. We can do this in a regular council meeting, like the next meeting, and transfer 100 to 125,000 out and move it over to.
Yes, we can consider that when Darwin brings the report back on the Pine Lake, the status, the cost, and how we're going to pay for it.
Are we good with leaving this item then? So are you okay with that? I know what you're getting at. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I brought it forward as a possible way of reducing the levy, but it wouldn't go, it sounds like it wouldn't go there anyway. So, and those funds are available for a capital project, I guess. That's what I hear you saying. They could be applied towards this culvert.
well, it's with the treasurer, but we'll have to fund it somehow. So
We took money out of the Canada Building Fund last year to help fund last year's road budget. So, same idea. All right. Sarah?
So the motion on the table is moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council approves in principle the 2025 draft budget.
Final comments? In favor?
Do we want to put what the levy is in that motion, possibly?
That would be good. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to fluctuate, but what is the levy?
So the levy increase is 327,376 or 4.55%. 327,376 4.55%.
It's draft budget. So you can read it again when you're finished. Counselor Hermer,
This doesn't include county or education, does it?
education 0, but doesn't include the county. It's a 5 point, what's 4.8? Or it is
So we're
now.
looking at over 10%.
We don't get it all. Oh, sorry, Kelly, you to answer the question, please, as I can.
So right now, we're looking at a levy increase of 4.55. We are preliminary numbers for the assessment. We had a assessment increase of 0.76. So the levy, the rate increase then ends up being about 3.5. And then the county, their increase is 5. I don't know, it keeps changing.
1.48, but changing.
So it ends up being less than that number as well, but I just don't know what it is. So I can bring it, I'm hoping to bring it back to the December 13th meeting where I will have the bylaw based on the information today. And certainly it is council's discretion if you want to have further discussions and not approve that bylaw.
So we're still looking at roughly 8-9% anyway.
No,
Well, that's what I just asked. It said it didn't include county.
so the 4.55 is the township's levy increase, does not include the county or education. Education rate did not change, so there's no change there. The county, until they can do their allocations to each of the lower tiers based on assessment, I just don't know what that number is going to look like when it hits North Frontenac. It won't be 5, the 5.4, it'll usually be a bit
less.
less.
So, but then we have to add them.
Well, they don't get a direct add. When you do the tax rate, it ends up being a little bit less again usually.
Any chance we'll stay below 5? Probably not.
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not going to speculate it.
all right. Did the county tell you when they plan to have their notice and bill? When they plan to give you the percentages or the increases?
So we just received the preliminary numbers on Wednesday here, and we had a meeting with MPAC, and it had just been released while we were talking to them, and I think they phase out the townships. So I'm just not sure when they're getting them. And when I was talking to the treasurer this week, he is in some union negotiations and is away, but he is going to do his best to get it for me before our next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Tara, would you read the motion, please?
Be it resolved that council approves in principle the 2025 draft budget with a levy increase of $327,376, being a 4.55% increase.
All in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw. Please.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-76 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held November 29th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time and finally pass.
Any comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everybody for their participation and their input. It's a tough day and wish it could be better, but we have challenges and I think we've done a good job and we're looking at how we could tackle those challenges. There will be more as we go through the next year. So thank you. Adjournment of council, please.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 2:03 p.m. until December 13th, 2024, or at the call of the chair.
In favor? Carried.